Hi everyone, I'm Scott. I am with C14G. We are a cybersecurity solutions provider. That means we focus on the internet into your company. That can range from remote workers, VPN concentrators, firewalls, encryption, SNMP monitoring, sometimes application monitoring. We offer a variety of different services. You can always visit us today, contact us, and we will gladly look over. We can do a security assessment on your network and see what we come back with. That being said, today I wanted to discuss, minimize myself into the corner here, a few of the news articles that have kind of hit our way, and I wanted to point out what you can do to help mitigate some of these things. This is currently in June 2021. These articles have popped up in the last 30 days, and I wanted to comment on them. I wanted to point out an article that I've read here on wired.com. It says ransomware's dangerous new trick is double encrypting your data. For those of you who might not be familiar with what ransomware is, it's a cryptography service or a password service. I'm just going to use that to make it easy. If you get ransomware on your computer, it will go through every file, whether it's on the network or whether it's on the local computer or a USB drive. It'll go through every file it can get access to, and it will scramble that file to make it no longer readable, accessible, usable. It's just empty space filling up your hard drive at that point. It's not really empty, but it's no longer usable, so in a sense, it's useless space. I guess that's probably the better word. The reason that this article is important is because even if you were to pay the ransom to decrypt it, you're only paying that once. So if you just forked out $300,000 or $1 million to get your information back, they may only give you 20% of your information back or half your information back because they know that you're willing to pay. You're more than willing to pay twice as well. So that being said, I wanted to point out some of the wording in this article. Ransomware groups have taken a more is more approach. Basically, the more we can get, the more is better. If a victim pays a ransom and then goes back to business as usual, hit them again. That's what the ransomware writers want to do. Or don't just encrypt a target system, steal their data first so you can threaten it and leak it if they don't pay up. Professionally, I have spoken with or worked with people that write ransomware, people that request ransoms, terrorists, or whatever you want to call them. And they have flat out told me, absolutely, once we get our money, we're going to go back again and we're going to hack them again if we're going to ransomware encrypt them again if they don't patch the hole that we got through on the first time. What is the hole they get through? According to what this ransomware person told me, he or she said that it's typically remote desktop. Whatever the case may be, some remote connectivity. Typically, remote desktop gets them in, and they don't have the company doesn't have tools in place to prevent constant hashing, which means they continue to try usernames and passwords until it works. They don't have good lockout policies. They don't have good geolocation services, meaning that I could try from Israel, and then I could try from Ireland, and then I could try from Russia, and your system won't stop me from that. They'll just keep going and going and going. You may think that your 5 to 10 password attempt policy is enough. That's built into Windows Active Directory, but they can get around that, guaranteed. So if you don't have anything in place or you want to know if you have the right things in place, please reach out to us. You can find us on c14g.com, and all of our contact information is out there. If you think you're immune, you're not, unfortunately. I wish it was as simple as, yeah, you have antivirus software out there, you're good to go, but that's no longer the case. This isn't 2001 anymore. And now, just to point out here, double encryption attacks have happened before, usually stemming from two separate ransomware gangs compromising the same system at the same time. But an antivirus company, MZSoft, is aware of dozens of incidents in which the same actor or group intentionally layers two types of ransomware on top of each other. Think about that. If you paid $1 million to get half your files back, as a business, you've been doing nothing for the past 5 days or 7 business days. And now all of a sudden you think you're getting your data back because you paid $500,000, but you find out I got everything back but my databases? Oh man, I guess I'll pay again. I have insurance, right? That's the effect of it. By paying the ransom once, you've essentially already told them you're desperate and you're willing to do whatever it takes. And they're saying, well, how desperate are you? Unfortunately, there is no workaround. One of the most common ones I mentioned in another video is WannaCry. WannaCry is a form of ransomware. That algorithm has been decrypted, meaning that if you get hit with ransomware, you can put in a file and it'll tell you what key to generate and it'll decrypt the files for you automatically. But that took years to generate. And realistically, anyone can take that ransomware variant and make it their own. So while there is opportunity, it's very rare that you're going to get your file back without paying. The typical restore or the typical get back to working scenario is to restore all your files from all your servers. If you're on tape, that's going to take days. If you're on disk, I hope you've tested your backup recently. Regardless, let's move on here. I wanted to show the importance of even old school technology is not immune to this, right? So on this article from NBC News, 50,000 security disasters waiting to happen, the problem of America's water pipeline. And whoever this cybersecurity consultant is, they said, if you can imagine a community center run by two old guys who are plumbers, that's your average water plant. That's true. Here in Jacksonville, this article is going to talk about San Francisco. San Francisco obviously has a large user base, but water plants are generally one of those things that once you have it up and running, hopefully you can cut back on staff. And that sounds bad, but that's the business mindset. You can cut back on staff and only run the supporting staff instead of having to pay for engineers and all that fun stuff. So this is a pretty common scenario. So on January 15th, a hacker tried to poison a water treatment plant that served parts of the San Francisco Bay Area. It didn't seem hard. The hacker had access to the username and the password for a former employee's TeamViewer account. So there's two things here that are kind of big red flags that tells me that the internal IT team for this water plant didn't have processes and procedures in place, or they didn't have a consequence if they didn't follow through, right? So when an employee leaves a company, the very first thing you should be doing is disabling their account and setting up their email to go somewhere else. That person shouldn't need account access anymore. The other things that you should do is turn off their machine, wipe it and assign it to the next employee down the line. That would have prevented this attempt right here for sure. So one thing you can do is you can go to a website called, go to monitor.firefox.com and you'll see, you can check to see if parts of your service have been breached, right? So we're going to use our service account for our company to see, has anybody ever gotten a username or password for it? The answer is probably going to be no. And you'll see that the emails appeared in 0 known data breaches. But if I go put my own personal, I don't use this anymore. It's probably 8 years old and I haven't touched it. We'll go use my personal one. I guarantee you it's going to come back. Yeah, this email has appeared in at least 12 known data breaches. And the latest 2 are still from 2020. On the site, it'll tell you that what was used, right, or what was compromised. Passwords and email addresses, you're going to notice a pattern here. Passwords and phone numbers, IP addresses and phone numbers, passwords and email addresses, passwords and email addresses, passwords and email addresses. It's all information that can be used to get into a company, to guess its way into a username and password for a company, right? So if I used, let's say on Mashable, I don't even know what that is, but if I used, actually we'll say LiveJournal, which I haven't been on in 15 years. If I use the same password that I use on LiveJournal to sign into my account at work, there you go. It's an easy guess, right? All these actual data, these passwords and information are usually leaked on what's called the dark web. All the dark web really is a non-indexable. What I mean by indexable is when Google goes out there or Bing goes out there or Yahoo goes out there to search, it'll scrape websites, and when you type in some of those keywords or whatever their algorithm says, it'll show up. Well, all those websites that are not indexable is considered the dark web, right? So how would you access the dark web? You would typically type in an IP address into your web browser. You would use a Tor browser, which is bounced through multiple encryption channels through VPNs, and that way nobody could ever find your data. But the point being is that what they will do is they'll download these passwords and email addresses. They're just databases full. They'll figure out that I have a tendency to use first name, last name, or first name dot last name, or first initial last name, because that's what companies use. And then they'll see the list of passwords that I've tried, and they'll try those passwords first. This is all automated. This is not somebody going through a database or a spreadsheet and figuring it all out. It just picks the next line that's likely to succeed, and they're going to go through one after another, after another, after another until they're in. And once they're in, they can run the ransomware. Or if, let's take this, even if it comes back a zero, that nothing was ever found, the next most likely method ransomware is going to get into your machine is somebody is going to click a URL in your email, and that will automatically, they'll think it's an Excel spreadsheet. They might think it's a Word document. It'll ask you, do you wish to enable this, wish to enable that? You click yes, and infected. Infected isn't really typically the right word, but it's the easiest word in this scenario. Infection usually implies that there's malware. Ransomware is not malware. Ransomware is just using the system's built-in encryption services unwillingly to the end user without knowing what the password is. That's why a lot of antivirus programs or AV programs don't actually stop them. So that being said, one thing that you could, going back to this article, after we said the username and the password for the former employee's TeamViewer account. So TeamViewer is a popular program that lets users remotely control their computer. It's been around for a long time. It used to be free. They didn't generate any money, so they did start charging for it. I think LogMeIn might own it. Don't quote me on that. But the point being is, with WatchGuard and by using our service, we can go through and limit the applications that are on machines. If you don't, I don't know why a computer on your network, on your a computer on your business network would ever need TeamViewer installed. If you're not using that as an authorized application, we can make it so if somebody accidentally tries to install it or is coerced into installing it, it'll get blocked by the firewall automatically. It never happened. That's called application control. It's one form of application control, and WatchGuard and C14G can help set it up so that never happens to you. So I just wanted to point that out. There's literally three things that could have prevented this from happening. One, you should have disabled the username immediately once the employee left. Two, the computer should have been shut down so they couldn't get into a TeamViewer account. And three, TeamViewer should have never been installed in the first place. So those three things right there were very easily avoidable. Now, the last thing I wanted to point out was the average time to fix critical cybersecurity vulnerabilities is 205 days. So almost 2/3 of a year. So that being said, for the companies that I've worked for, cybersecurity vulnerabilities is a very vague term. The number one issue with cybersecurity vulnerabilities, Windows patching. You would think Windows patching, it's been around for so long, it's as easy as can be. Most of the time, a lot of the small and medium businesses don't have good patch management in place. They'll either be doing it manually or they'll be doing it on a best effort scenario. However, there are proper ways to do patch management. You can use Microsoft's WSUS tool. I think they're trying to phase it out, but there are other options available where you can, let's say you have 5 business servers that host line of business applications. You want them to have updates last. You can set that up on an automated process where it'll install all the updates on every machine but that, see how they react. If the updates are okay, 1 week later or 5 days later or whatever you want to do, 1 day later, it'll go ahead and install it on the machines that are crucial to business. You don't have to put your line of business applications out as the guinea pig for Windows updates. What do I mean by that? If you haven't seen, sometimes Microsoft will release patches on Tuesday and they'll come out on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday and say, anyone who installed those patches, sorry, we found a bug. Anybody who uses this or is in this type of scenario, it bricks their machine, they're no longer to operate. If you've never had that happen to you, I'm lucky, I'm glad for you, but realistically it requires a restore and you lose data, especially if there's a database involved. So vulnerabilities are absolutely positively important, I just wanted to point out that some of these 205 days, I've seen companies 700 days before they decided to fix it. One of the biggest reasons that this becomes an issue are companies don't want to spend money or they don't want to spend time. They're literally gambling with their money making. They don't want to spend the time to restart their servers because they think it's inconvenient. It's a nasty truth of servers and infrastructure today. If you don't want to patch manage, you shouldn't be hosting any of your own things. The problem with that is if you want to go out to the cloud, there's a high price tag with that, and you don't own the data or you don't own the instance. So there are some limitations that you have, and a lot of companies have said that. Either way, I wanted to just bring up these things. This was supposed to be a short video. I'm running about 18 minutes now, so I'm going to try to cut it down a bit. But there are things out there. I wanted to point these out. Go check for yourself. See if you're out on monitor.firefox.com. And do you know what would happen? Have you run a test procedure to see what would happen if ransomware hits your company? Would your antivirus stop it? Would your firewall stop it? Would whatever other security mitigations put in place stop it? Reach out to us, c14g.com, if you have any other questions. Thank you.